Hey traders, it's John Fortune here with this week's weekly Forex forecast for the 13th of August to the 17th of August 2018. As always, we're going to start by looking at the US dollar index and oil before running through a number of markets, looking at the key levels of support and resistance in the process. And we're also going to be highlighting some of the targets that we're going to be looking for in the coming week and also for the weeks ahead. So without further ado, let's jump over to the charts and see where the money is this week. As always, starting with the US dollar index. Now, last week we had a really nice rally to the upside in the dollar index, taking out both targets to the upside set from last week. And we broke out of this choppy range that we've been in the dollar index for a while. So very simply put, two things in the dollar index. First, we are looking further advances in the dollar index, and we have a strong bias now on the dollar. And secondly, if we can get a pullback and a retest of broken support turning resistance, and in this case you can see this is in fact also the top of the range, we're going to be looking, if we get this kind of price action, to initiate longs up towards the first key area of resistance to the upside in the target set at the 96.78. And if we get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking up towards the next key area of resistance to the upside in target 2 at the 97.04. Next, we have crude oil. Now, in crude oil, we've actually been in a bit of a range here at this key area of support since the 17th of last month, so coming up to a month now. And you can see we do start the week once again above the 67.15 key area of support. As long as we're above here, we're viewing longs as the high probability play in oil. Because of the corrective nature, and we're kind of bouncing around this level, albeit slightly above it, there's nothing wrong, as you can see here, we're just introducing a bit of a counter trend line. If we get a break up in oil, what I would like to see is some momentum coming in first and a breakthrough here, and then looking for, if we can get a pullback and we can get this kind of price action anywhere in this area, preferably a retest of broken resistance. In this case, failed as resistance, pulls back, tests the support. This is where we can once again start to look for bullish formations and patterns in oil. And we're going to be looking once again up to the next key area of resistance to the upside, the target set, the 72.15. And if we can get a breakthrough here, although this is the first port of call, we're going to be looking up to the next key area of resistance to the upside and target 2 at the 74.70. So the first pair we're going to look at is Eurodollar. Now, last week we had a really nice sell-off from the key area of broken support turning resistance to the 1.16248. You can see almost at the pit we got this turn and we came down, took out both targets to the downside. So the Eurodollar was a really good pair last week. Very simply put, going into this week, we're looking for further declines in the Eurodollar. If we can get a pullback and a retest, our optimal entry will be if we can get a retest of broken support, once again turning resistance at the 1.15275. This is going to provide another great chance to start to look for bearish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking first of all down to the next key area of support to the downside in the target set at the 1.12683. And although this might not be achieved next week, if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking down towards the next key area of support to the downside and target 2 at the 1.11259. So just bear in mind the second target here may take longer than just being achieved next week. Next, we have pound dollar. Now, last week we had a really big sell-off in the pound dollar. We took out both targets to the downside in the pound dollar, and we are looking further declines in the pound dollar this week, especially as we have a strong bias on the dollar index going into this week. So very simply put, if we can get a pullback and a retest of broken support turning resistance at the 1.2852, this is going to be a great place to start to look for bearish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating shorts in the pound dollar down towards the next key area of support to the downside in the target set at the 1.2636. Next, we have US dollar Japanese yen. Now, in the US dollar Japanese yen, we actually start the week below the key area of support at the 110.950. But because of the strong bias on the dollar index going into this week, I would be very hesitant to short the US dollar yen. So I'm looking actually to filter shorts in the US dollar yen based on the dollar index strength. And if we get a pullback, can we get a pullback down to the next key area of support to the downside at the 110.250? Perhaps. But I would not be looking to trade this move to the downside here. What I'd like to see instead in the US dollar Japanese yen is if we can get a break back above the key area of support here at the 110.950, especially if we can get a breakout of here as well. And again, you can see once we start to get a little bit choppy at some of these levels, it's not a bad idea to introduce a trend line just to get that added confirmation of this breakout of any correction. If we get a breakout, this is where we can start to look once again. I'll be looking for a pullback and a retest of broken support, turning resistance at the 110.950. And if we get this kind of price action, this is going to be the place you start to look once again for bullish formations and patterns, looking to capitalize on that potential dollar strength in the markets. And we're going to be looking first of all to the next key area of resistance to the upside in the target set at the 112.054. This is the move that we had here. This exact same move that we had previously we'll be looking for again. And if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking up towards the next key area of resistance to the upside at the 113.086. Next, we have Aussie Dollar. Now, last week, Aussie Dollar also sold off. We did finally get a breakout of this range to the downside, this really choppy kind of move. It's actually pretty horrible price action in the Aussie Dollar for the last, pretty much the last 4 or 5 weeks. And we finally had that break to the downside. So very simply put, going into this week, we start the week below the key area of broken support, turning resistance at those 0.73584. And if we can get a pullback and a retest of broken support turning resistance, this is going to be a great place to start to look for bearish formations and patterns. We're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key area of support to the downside in the Aussie dollar at the 0.72470. And if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking down towards the next key area of support to the downside and target 2 at the 0.71658. Next, we have New Zealand dollar. Now, last week we had a really big sell-off in New Zealand dollar as well. Came down, took out both the targets from last week, and we came very, very close, in fact, to the next key area of support to the downside from here. So what we'd like to see in New Zealand dollar, if we can get a pullback and a retest of broken support, turning resistance at the 0.67110, this is going to be a great place to start to look for bearish formations and patterns. It's going to give us really nice space to get good risk to reward all the way down to the next key area of support to the downside and the target set at the 0.65440. And if we get a breakthrough here, or if next week we come straight down like this, and we end up breaking through like this, this is another great place to start to look for bearish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key area of support to the downside here at the 0.64568. Next, we have the US dollar Swiss franc. Now, the US dollar Swiss franc has been very, very choppy. As you can see, we start the week below the key area of broken support, turning resistance over here, turning resistance over here, turning resistance 3 times over here. So very simply put, as we start the week below here, technically we would be looking to the downside normally, but because we are now out of the range in the dollar index and we have dollar strength, I would view shorting the dollar as a risky strategy going into next week. Can we make this move to the downside, testing the next key area of support to the downside at 0.98586? It is possible, but our job as traders is not to find the possible. Our job is to find the probable, and if we can, the highly probable. So what I would like to see going into next week in the US dollar franc, very simply, is for this resistance to fail and for this pair to fall into line with the dollar strength. And if we get a pullback and a retest of broken resistance turning support at 0.99627, this would be a great place to start to look for bullish formations and patterns. First of all, up to the next key area of resistance to the upside and the target set, the 1.00412. And if we can get a breakthrough here, up towards the next key area of resistance to the upside and target 2 at the 1.00988. Next, we have the US Dollar CAD. Now, we go into this week with the US Dollar CAD breaking back above the key area of broken resistance. You can see tested as resistance, tested as resistance, tested as resistance, broken resistance, testing as support once over here at the 1.30682. If we can get a pullback and a retest of broken resistance turning support, this is going to be a great place to start to look for bullish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating longs in the US Dollar CAD up to next key area of resistance to the upside and the target set at the 1.32100. And if we can get a breakthrough here, we're going to be looking up towards the next key area of resistance to the upside and target 2 at the 1.32867. And last but not least, we have gold. Now, in gold, we've been correcting, going sideways, sitting underneath the key area of broken support, turning resistance to the 1218.79. Very simply put, if we get a pullback and a retest of the key area of broken support, turning resistance to the 1218.79, this is going to be a great place to start to look for bearish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking next week at initiating shorts in gold down towards the next key area of support to the downside at the 1195.32. And if we can get a breakthrough here, down towards the next key area of support to the downside and target 2 at the 1188.10. I do like gold personally. If we get this kind of a pullback into this area, I think gold next week could be a really nice move. So that is it from me for this week, guys. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy this video, please let me know by liking, sharing and subscribing. A big thank you to those of you who do that on a regular basis and those of you who comment and have already subscribed to the channel. I want to wish you all a fantastic weekend. I hope you all have a great week next week and a very profitable week next week. The only thing left to say is take care and don't forget to trade safely.